flow.
Welcome to episode 57 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoy the content, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. As of Monday, March 28th, 2022, oh my God, what a weekend it was. The Canadian men's national team qualified for the World Cup. The Leafs beat the Florida Panthers, and Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. I still can't believe what we watched last night. We are going to get into all of that. Yes, even Will Smith. But before we do that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing very well, Anthony Bruno. As you said, it was a very eventful weekend. The Leafs beat one of the best teams in the league. Our beloved Canadian men's national soccer team qualified for the World Cup. And the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air slapped Chris Rock in the face. Episode 57. Shout out goes to the single Toronto Maple Leaf in the history of the franchise to wear number 57, our boy Andrew McWilliam, who in 2015 played 12 games with the blue and white, recorded 2 assists. It was the only 12 games he played in the National Hockey League. Went on to play or spend some time with the, I believe it was the Sabres organization and maybe a little bit in Winnipeg, and now finds himself applying his trade in the German Elite League. So still playing pro hockey. But yeah, if anyone ever asks you who's ever worn number 57 for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the answer is defenseman Andrew McWilliam.
Love it, Lepore. Yeah, I mean, we're getting up into these numbers now where there's some just random dudes.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what you're going to say every episode because I'm really not a numbers guy in terms of I'm not a jersey guy. So I kind of forget what numbers people wear half the time. And yeah, I had no idea you were going to bring up Andrew McWilliam. But yeah, love that shout out. But Lepore, we have to start this podcast talking about Will Smith real quick.
We definitely do.
Because that was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. So I'll set the stage.
I'm
watching Leafs Panthers last night. I'm with my girlfriend watching the game. She's kind of doing her own thing. The game ends. I'm happy. Leafs obviously played really well against one of the best teams in the NHL. I flip it over to the Oscars, and it was perfect timing. I flipped it over a few minutes before this incident. Chris Rock makes the joke on stage. Will Smith initially laughs at the joke. And then his wife, Jada, looks over at him and gives him this stare that wasn't good. You got to do something about this. And then 7 seconds later, the dude walks on stage, slaps Chris Rock in the face. And then I'm watching this live. So on the live broadcast, the audio cuts out for 12 seconds.
He was walking up, or when exactly did it cut out?
Right after he slapped him, then the audio cuts out for about 12 seconds. And you see Will Smith yelling from his seat, and Chris Rock looks rattled. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, is this an act? Because usually when the audio cuts out, it's for 2 or 3 seconds because it's an F-bomb or something like that. But I'm like, what's going on? This is 12, 13 seconds now that the audio's out. And then Chris Rock comes back, and he just looks absolutely rattled. So I'm like, what was this fake? Was this real? Then I'm on Twitter, and then the actual uncensored video comes out. And that's when I said, oh my God, this was 100% real. And Will Smith absolutely lost his mind.
It's crazy.
And I just couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah. It was, the only way to put it is that it was kind of amazing. It was so crazy that it was amazing. And Chris Rock hit the nail right on the head when he said that it was the best few seconds in the history of television because of the entertainment value. Just pure shock and awe. But I've often said that sometimes things can happen that are just so out there that they're confusing. Like someone can make a mistake or have an opinion and you can understand that mistake or that opinion. I cannot wrap my head around what Will Smith did. Like, yeah, the guy took a shot at your wife. Okay. And the guy's a stand-up comic. I'm sure he was breaking balls at people all night long. And just how he reacted. Like, what was he thinking? Like I'm gonna go up there. Like, how is this gonna end well? And I'll be honest here. Like, let's get this straight, okay? Here's Will Smith. Grew up in the hood in Philly, this and that. No one ever broke your balls before a little bit. You couldn't take it. You had to go up there and slap the guy in the face on national television. I'm sure worse has been said to him than that, or at his family for that matter. But I don't know. It sucks because Will Smith, to me, like childhood, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, coming home from school, watching that show. And now every time I see his face or hear his name, that visual of him attacking Chris Rock is going to pop into my head.
Yeah, no matter what you thought of Will Smith in the past, all the memories you had of this dude, you know, whether he was one of your favorite actors or not, the first thing that people are going to think about from now until the end of time when they bring up Will Smith is him slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was watching in real time. And the first thing I thought about, I don't know if you saw King Richard, the movie that he actually won Best Actor for.
I did on my flight home from Florida.
Yeah, the movie on the life of Serena and Venus Williams and how their father, Richard Williams, basically coached them and mentored them all the way up to them becoming two of the greatest women's tennis players of all time. But anyway, I'm like, does this dude actually think that he's Richard Williams? Yeah. It's almost like he was playing Richard Williams in that moment. I'm like, what is this guy doing right now?
So weird, man.
And then he comes up, so he wins Best Actor, and I think it was totally deserved because I think he was incredible in that movie. And then he just has this bizarre speech where he did not apologize to Chris Rock. He apologized to the Academy, but it was just like weird. He was saying some weird things. I don't know what the hell he was trying to say in that speech. And that made it even more bizarre. But I just, again, it was just one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And we couldn't do a podcast today without talking about what happened at the Oscars last night.
Seriously, impossible. I'm sure a lot of people all over the world are having the conversation about this right now, regardless of what their forum is. So why not, I guess. But yeah, no, that's history. What happened last night is pop culture history. Books will be written about the incident last night, or there will be Twitter in today's world. We'll just say Twitter wars will occur based on what happened last night. But
yeah, one of the greatest nights in the history of Twitter. If you weren't on Twitter last night, you got to go on there, check out some of the memes, just search Will Smith, Chris Rock, God, and you will be dying of laughter. It was incredible. But
craziness.
Lepore, let's move on now and talk about some hockey.
Why not?
All right. So just to go over the week that was for the Toronto Maple Leafs, on Wednesday night, Mark Giordano and Colin Blackwell making their Leafs debuts wearing the new Justin Bieber jerseys.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Lepore has a lot to say when it comes to those jerseys. But the Leafs picked up a 3-2 win. Mark Giordano played just over 18 minutes in his debut, 3 hits, 2 blocks, paired with Timothy Liljegren. So he's been paired with Liljegren every single game that he's been a Leaf, and it's actually looked pretty good. And we can get into that as well. I really like the way that Giordano has been playing. Peter Mrazek in that game looked pretty good, making 20 saves on 22 shots. Yeah. But then the Leafs follow that up by outshooting the Habs 51-18 on Saturday night at the Bell Center and losing 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
And we will have a lot to say about that as well. And then the Leafs, of course, doing what they do, losing to shitty teams and beating one of the best teams in the NHL the next night at home against the Florida Panthers, picking up a 5-2 victory. Mitch Marner was fantastic in this game. 3 assists.
Amazing.
Ilya Mikheyev, his 14th goal in 36 games. He has been a beast this season. But Lepore, let's backtrack a little bit, going back to that Devils game. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, as Leafs fans, let's be honest, the whole Justin Bieber night, the new jerseys, we had circled this one as a loss because, as we say on this show often, because they're the Leafs. But I was happy to see them get out the win. And as you mentioned, Mrazek played well. and he followed it up last night with that win against Florida, and he played well again. So hopefully his confidence is growing. It was quick to see what Giordano brings, for me anyway, in that game. And that is just a steady presence. The guy's calm, experienced, and knock on wood, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, if any mistakes at all. Just to add to the depth of the D. Blackwell, again, you could see the speed, that little bit of tenacity. I think it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up in the lineup. Like, a lot of people are debating whether or not he should get a chance with Willie and JT, or if he should be like on the fourth line to provide that depth. But we have some time to figure it out, and we'll see. And with these rumors about Edward Zeze and Nyes coming in the lineup, we'll see how it all turns out and the opportunities guys are going to get. But it was a weird game. And this is going to sound, I mean, maybe weird to some people, but the reason why this game scared me specifically was because the Leafs were in black jerseys. And people who've played sports know that all it takes is some sort of little change to something, and the game just feels weird. Like, I've heard a lot of the football players who play in those baseball stadium games hate it, just because like the lighting's a little different, like the stadium feels different, doesn't quite feel like a football stadium. So I was a little nervous, just that thing in the back of my mind of thinking, for Leafs players to look across the ice and be looking for black might put you down that 1 or 2%. And in today's NHL, that costs you points. But happy they got out the win, is like weird of a game it was. And I was happy to see Giordano and Blackwell like look decent in their first showing.
Yeah. And even going back to the jersey point, I could barely see who was who at times.
Yeah, the numbers thing. Yeah, the numbers thing wasn't good.
The numbers thing wasn't good with those jerseys. But yeah, I mean, talking about Mark Giordano, that dude is such a steady presence. And we talked about it on the last podcast. He wasn't the best player acquired at the trade deadline, but the impact he is going to make on this team, I personally think it's the most impactful move of the trade deadline. Call me a Leafs hater, a Leafs homer if you want. I don't care. But when you just look at how this defense core is now slotted and how from shift to shift, it's just so much more consistent having a guy like Mark Giordano playing with Timothy Liljegren when you have Riley and Lyubushkin, you have Brody and Hall, and then you have Giordano and Liljegren. There's not a lot of mistakes that have been made out there. And especially in this Devils game, it was like low event hockey. The Leafs come away with a win. And I just thought it was a really solid game all around. And specifically for Mark Giordano, who I think is going to be fantastic for this team moving forward and going into the playoffs. And I think he just calms things down defensively for that entire D-core. And yeah, I mean, that was just my biggest takeaway from the game, is that I love how he looked. And we can talk more about Giordano and how the Leafs have played defensively over the last, couple games against the Habs and the Panthers, and we'll get into that. But that was just my biggest takeaway, was how comfortable he looked out there, Lepore.
Yeah. I mean, I think of all the deals that were made, and when you say, oh, it was the most impactful deal, to me, it never really had a question mark. And I think you can look at some of the other deals like, ooh, how is this guy going to fit in? Or does this guy really bring something because that team already has a lot of that? Or was that really a need? Whereas Giordano, we all knew as Leafs fans exactly what the goal was, for him to come in, not show off, not fall behind, just fall nicely into the lineup and just be a steady presence, as you said. And it's only been 3 games, but so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk. Actually, I have a quote, Lepore. I know you love when I have these Sheldon Keefe quotes. I will save it. I will save it for when we're talking about the Leafs and Panthers game, but it has to do with Mark Giordano.
Okay.
Lepore, listen, you're the jersey snob. Is there anything you have to get off your chest about these Leafs Bieber jerseys?
Well, when you say like get off your chest, it sounds kind of negative.
No, I know. I know you like these jerseys.
I like them. Like, I don't love it. I like it. It's different. It's black, which is, very cool to see the Toronto Maple Leafs wear something other than blue and white. But what I do love about the jersey is the idea of the jersey. I mean, going completely off the wall, going another color. I haven't seen it close up, but people have said that the skyline is on the arm in the blue. There's some detail in the maple leaf. And then of course, like it being reversible is just a great idea. Kids are going to get a kick out of it. Like, I'll say it, man. I was in the locker room of my nephew's team the other day, and all the kids were talking about it. It was the day after the game. And even the kids who aren't Leafs fans are like, oh, I like that jersey. I want it, blah, blah, blah. So very cool. And for people who really and truly follow sort of the brands that these leagues bring, the NHL needs more of this. I say often on this show that I love hockey, but I hate the NHL. When it comes to branding, marketing, put out a product, I'll say it. In my opinion, the NHL is fucking terrible. You look at what the NFL does, the NBA, even, man, like MLS, things they do, ideas. The NHL is just boring and has no clue as far as I'm concerned. And this is a whole other conversation, but the NHL, as far as pop culture goes, has kind of fallen off a cliff. I think back to when I was growing up, I remember staying up late because Gretzky hosted Saturday Night Live. I can't imagine a world now where a hockey player is hosting Saturday Night Live, like for a name to be big enough to do that. Now, Gretzky's Gretzky, but I can't even think of a name that would be even close to them thinking that could be something they could try. I remember Yzerman being on like Leno and guys being on Letterman, like Messier was always in the scene. And people laugh at this one, things like the Mighty Ducks, the movie, the cartoon, all that stuff. Sports Illustrated had a cover in the 90s that said, if I remember the quote correctly, the cover had a picture of, I think it was Richter, and it said why the NHL is hot and the NBA is not. And in that issue, they predicted that the NHL was going to pass the NBA in terms of popularity in North America.
Now it's the complete opposite.
Now that's hilarious to even think of. And the NHL has just not done a good job marketing to kids, creating new fans. So things like this, like I'm not going to say like a Justin Bieber jersey or a reversible jersey is going to create a hockey fan out of nothing, but it helps. It gets kids talking. And I'm sure too, like it's freaking Justin Bieber. I'm sure that even made pop culture press outside of hockey that he was at the game and they were wearing these jerseys. And I don't know exactly how it's translated, but, and people can comment down below what they think about this. If the whole Matthews thing, like how they're buddies, does that help Matthews' brand just because he's more recognizable in pop culture? Because even people who don't follow hockey, like, oh yeah, that Austin Matthews guy who plays for the Leafs and who is from Toronto where Bieber's from, they're buddies. The stuff like that. But again, so the jersey itself, I like it. I don't love it, but I love the idea of it. And the Leafs and the NHL definitely need more than that.
Yeah, what they're doing with the jersey, I think, is fantastic. Again, I don't really like the jersey. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I don't think black and blue is the greatest combination. Now, the black and yellow, that's a little bit different. I actually like the black and yellow better than the black and blue, to be honest. But
nice.
Yeah, I go back to that point you just made about how the NHL has fallen off a cliff when it comes to like relevance and pop culture and social media. Like the NFL and the NBA are light years ahead of the NHL in popularity. And it's a problem, honestly. It really is, because we're seeing the same thing with Major League Baseball, how that sport has fallen off a cliff, especially on social media and pop culture as well. And again, I know that, I mean, we do a Leafs podcast, for heaven's sake. So we talk about them on social media. I make hockey videos on TikTok and YouTube and things like that, but it's not even as close to as big or as popular as the NBA and the NFL are. And things like this, you know, making a jersey with Justin Bieber, one of the biggest pop stars in the world, it could really only help.
Yeah, exactly.
It really can only help the NHL and the Toronto Maple Leafs and just the brand in general, and to get hockey out there and get more eyeballs on it. And it's a small little thing, but it's a step in the right direction. And hopefully the NHL can do more things like this moving forward.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny. I don't know about you, but anytime I'm in the States, there's always that little intrigue for US Sports Center. Like, oh, like something different in the morning. You watch US Sports Center. And every time I put it on, I'm reminded about how no one gives a fuck about hockey. They will not show hockey highlights. They'll show any other possible highlight they can before they get to a hockey highlight, if they do show one at all. And they don't even show the full highlights, the full highlight package. They'll just say, oh, in other news, Pittsburgh beat the Capitals 3-2, Crosby with a goal and an assist. And they'll show like a little quick vid of him celebrating a goal. Like that's it. So it's funny, man, but it shows, and the NHL has work to do. Really, they really do. But again, this is something we can talk about forever and shit on the NHL and the sport and how things have changed since we were kids in terms of how the sport's marketed, how the sport is seen in society. Like now, and this can really get into a discussion, but people see hockey as a country club sport. The costs for hockey have gone bananas. So it's sort of only an isolated group that can play hockey, where the story of Canadiana before was always, oh, that kid who grew up on the farm, who was on his dad's outdoor rink, who made it to the NHL. No, now the story is that kid who got professional coaching at the age of 5 years old because his dad is some bigwig in downtown Toronto and had access to that. Right. So it's just changing. It's different. Like I said, this is something we can talk about forever. And it's something I'm passionate about because I love hockey. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I've seen how it's taken its spiral downwards, and I want that to change and go the other way. But as I said before, the league and the sport overall has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Lepore. Someone who grew up playing hockey his entire life, and I've seen, some of the things that go on in minor hockey, and now how expensive it is to play, even just to play men's league. Yeah. How expensive it is. Yeah, is kind of crazy. So, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, we can go on and on, but at the end of the day, the NHL has got to figure this out moving forward, and it's not going to happen overnight. But there's still time to save this and to try and do what they can to just up the popularity of this sport and for it to become more relevant among some of the top sports in North America. It's time for a quick break for a word about MANSCAPED, the champions of below the waist grooming and our proud sponsors who have done it again with the launch of the brand new Ultra Premium Collection. From trimming your hockey pucks to your everyday grooming and hygiene routine, MANSCAPED is here. After lighting the lamp, hit the showers with this all-in-one skin and hair care kit that covers you from head to toe. MANSCAPED is trust below the waist, and now it's time to trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who use MANSCAPED by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code GFP20. Lepore, these products are the best.
They are the best, Anthony Bruno. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are hockey players, and we all spend time in the locker room. Nobody wants to look like an ape, guys, in the locker room. So get that Lawnmower 4.0, take it to your body, finish it up with the shampoo and conditioner and the body wash so you look great and you smell great.
You said it, Lepore. You want to look good and feel good when you're playing hockey.
So you play good.
Very important. All right, everybody, get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Don't be a goon. Upgrade your hygiene routine with the Ultra Premium Collection from Manscaped. Let's move on now to the Montreal Canadiens game.
Sure.
On Saturday night at the Bell Center. Eric Källgren made his fourth start. And after looking pretty good in his first couple of starts, his last two starts have been pretty rough. And this game against the Habs, I didn't think he was bad by any means, but when the Habs are only getting 18 shots on goal and the puck is constantly in the Habs end and the Leafs are firing 51 shots on goal, it's hard for a goalie to get into their rhythm. So it was just frustrating because we've seen this story now play out so many times. The Leafs play an inferior opponent, dominate the inferior opponent, outshoot them 2-1, 3-1 in some cases, and find a way to lose the game. Yeah. We've now seen the Leafs lose to Buffalo this year. We've seen the Leafs lose to the Arizona Coyotes. We've seen them lose twice to the Montreal Canadiens. It's just absolutely insane. So many points just flying out the window, going down the drain. And that's probably going to be the difference, because if the Leafs had picked up wins in those games against these bad teams in the Eastern Conference, they would probably be leading the Atlantic Division right now. But instead, they're on the brink of a wild card spot. They were in a wild card spot over the weekend for a brief period of time. So It was just a frustrating game, Lepore. What are your thoughts on this Habs game?
I don't know. You could look at a game like that and say there's a lot to talk about, or flip it around and say there's not much to talk about. I mean, they dominated Montreal. The money puck numbers were in the 90s. I think it was like 93% of the time Toronto would win that game. As far as Shalgren goes, I'm not going to sit here and say he played well, but I'll quickly ask you, I mean, is there any goal of the three that you really thought he should have had? Because like I myself thought he didn't really have a chance on any of them. I mean, the winning goal was a 3-on-1. The Caulfield goal was a snipe. And the other goal was the one where Willie missed the assignment. The guy just had a top in. So,
yeah, I didn't think he played bad. I just think, maybe he could have made one or two more saves when the Leafs needed it. But it's like I was saying, right? It's just hard to get into a rhythm. And Sheldon Keefe, he talks about this all the time. He even mentioned this when the Leafs played Carolina. I believe it was like, 2 weeks ago. He was saying what their strategy was to let Carolina kind of tire themselves and control the puck and attack them off the rush. So he went into that game against Carolina being like, listen, guys, we're probably going to get outshot tonight, but let's try to attack them. Let's try to counterattack this team, score off the rush. We're going to catch Freddie Anderson when he's not comfortable. And honestly, the same thing happened to the Leafs here where Eric Shalgren, I don't really think had a chance to get comfortable and get into the game, whereas Jake Allen's on the other end, getting 51 shots peppered on him.
Yeah, it's amazing how in those types of games, you're always just so nervous. It's like every time Montreal enters the zone, you just feel like they're going to score. It's funny how it gets to you. But again, we have to look it up how many times it's happened this year where the Leafs have put up 40, 50 shots, 50, but put up a shit ton of shots and lost. Like, I mean, and then I'd like to see comparative to history, how bad it is. And if it ranks among the worst of all time, because it seems like a frequency. And now we remember those games because we're Leafs fans, but no, I think it's something pretty prevalent. That save Halak made on Marner on the power play. If you look at the replay, Marner didn't get all of it, but still what a save. And like margins, man, like hockey's so crazy. That goes in, Leafs go up the way they're playing. It's probably all she wrote. But Halak comes across, makes that save. And to be fair, Shalgren made that crazy save right after it. But like that Halak save has to be, I mean, at the end of the season, when
Jake Allen, you mean?
What did I say?
You said Halak.
I said Halak. Wow. I'm going way back in Montreal days. Wow. Holy geez. I was always thinking, remember Halak, how well he played against Pittsburgh and Washington.
Oh my God. He was insane during that playoff.
I probably just related a save like that to a Montreal Canadiens goalie and thought, oh, Halak. But yeah, no, what a save by Jake Allen. And at the end of the year, when SportsCenter does the top 10 saves of the season, I'd like to think that one's going to be there. But but let's get into what a lot of people were talking about after this game ended. Okay. Leafs with the puck in Montreal's end. Matthews with possession turns, his skate is clipped. He falls. Montreal comes back the other way on a 3-on-1 and scores what would be the game-winning goal. Okay. Go on your rant here, Bruno. Should that have been a penalty?
It should have been a penalty all day long. I thought that was another trash missed call by the NHL. The officiating has not been good. And we've talked about the officiating multiple times on this podcast. I don't want to, go on for 10 minutes talking about how bad the officiating is. I think we all kind of know that at this point. But when things are happening like that, a blatant trip, and whether Byron, meant to do it or not, it doesn't matter.
Thank you. Oh my God. People, it was an accident. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. His skate clipped Austin Matthews from behind. He falls to the ground. That is tripping. Byron walks in and scores the game-winning goal for the Montreal Canadiens. And it's just astounding to me because I keep seeing on Twitter, and it seems like this has been really heating up over the last couple of weeks, where everyone's showing how the Leafs are right towards the bottom of the league in terms of penalties drawn.
Yep.
And not just this season, but over the last number of seasons. A team that is this talented, a team that has the puck the majority of the time, that typically outshoots almost all of their opponents. For a team like that, with that much skill, to be that far down the list in terms of penalties drawn on a year-to-year basis is insane. Yeah. And it's just another example there where Byron trips Matthews and the Habs go in to score. That's the difference in the game, whether you like it or not.
the way, and again, like the whole debate of like, oh, it was an accident, whatever. If you step on a stick and fall, it's still tripping. Like I didn't mean to do it, but it caused the player to fall and lose possession. And what was crazy to me about that play was, I'll say it, kind of like unwritten hockey rule things. Let's say that play happened while Matthews was battling in the corner with a Canadiens player and fell back and they didn't call it. I'd be like, okay, whatever. Like that's fine. But typically the referee makes their decision on like where the next flow is going. So as it happens, you can see, okay, Montreal is going to get a turnover at the blue line now and they're gone on a break. So in most cases, again, like unwritten hockey rules thing, that would kind of push it over the edge and be like, hey, I got to call the penalty. I got to put my arm up because, yeah, it was questionable, whatever, but I can't give Montreal a scoring chance because of it. And that's what shocked me about it. And I said a few weeks ago on this show how something's got to be put in with regard to replay or challenges with it for those types of penalties. Because, okay, you go to the camera, it takes 2 minutes. His skate clipped his skate. He fell. No, blown, power play, Toronto. And I know what I can remember to what I was thinking. I was trying to get inside the referees' heads. Why didn't they call that, Bruno? Because the Leafs would they get 2-3 straight power plays to that point? And so they
game management.
Yeah. So they weren't going to give the Leafs a third or fourth straight power play and then give them one with barely any time to go in the third period to then maybe decide the game that way. Because, you know, God forbid they call the game the way it should be called and penalties get awarded the way they should be awarded. But it was just brutal, man. Just brutal. And it's funny. So a buddy of mine going into the third, Leafs down by 1. I get a text from a buddy saying, you know, man, the Leafs right now they were plus 200, I think he said, or something when they were going to the third down by 1, like plus 150 or plus 200. He's like, what do you think? I'm like, I think it's a good bet. And you know why I said it was a good bet, Bruno? Because I looked at my phone and I checked in on the power play chances. And at that point, they were 2-0 Montreal. So I knew, I'm like, Toronto's going to get one, maybe the next 2 power plays. So right now it's a good bet to throw it out there. And it's exactly what happened. It's so predictable. It's such bullshit. And here we were talking 5 minutes ago about the NHL has to make the game more attractive to people watching. And there's shit like that, like way to turn people off. But I don't know. And to me, and I'll say it again, people can throw shit in the comments as much as they want. This could have happened in a Sabres versus Devils game. And I would have had the same opinion. He tripped over his foot. Like, oh, it was an accident. And Matthews put himself in that situation. The other one here's, oh, the player is entitled to his ice. No. And the guy, to be fair too, Byron cut across. It wasn't that they were battling and their feet got tangled. No, Byron was the third guy in on the play and clipped his skate. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, like this is why the Leafs lost and whatever. I'm just talking specifically about that play. I'd be having the same opinion and giving the same rant if it happened 10 minutes into the first period or 5 minutes into the second period. I would see that and be like, no, that's a penalty. Like that's a hockey penalty. Like I took out another player's foot. And again, possession was lost and went the other way. It's just NHL, man. Like you get it right. Get it right. It's pathetic. And going back to it, now I am going to be a Leaf fan. They cost us the point against Arizona a few weeks ago with that hold on Matthews. Like funny how it's happened to Matthews both times. And now with this one, they cost the Leafs 1, maybe 2 points. It had the Leafs 1 in overtime or the shootout. And here we are talking about the standings and how bananas they are in the division. Well, that could cost you home ice advantage, or that could cost you winning the division for that matter. It's just a joke. It's horrible. And I will scream at anyone who defends that call, or that non-call, I should say.
Yeah, and should the Leafs still have won the game playing an inferior opponent that's one of the worst teams in the NHL? Yeah, they probably still should have won it. It shouldn't have gotten to that point where it's tied in the third period, but that's what happened. And there was a blatant missed call, and that led to the Leafs losing the game. And you know what? I'm already ready for the playoffs, Lepore, where dudes are going to be getting cross-checked in the back, left, right, and center, not just the Leafs. I mean, we saw it last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I remember Scott Mayfield two-handing Nikita Kucherov right in the back, no penalty. It's just going to be a free-for-all in the playoffs. Like, you literally have to commit a crime on the ice to get a penalty in the playoffs. So I don't know if it's ever going to change. We'll see how it gets called in the playoffs this year, but I have a feeling it's going to be the exact same thing we've seen for the last however many years you've been watching hockey. So
Brutal.
Get ready for it. If you're outraged right now, you're going to continue to be outraged by the officiating come playoff time. Lepore, how about these Montreal Canadiens?
How about them, Anthony Bruno?
This team, I mean, if you look at the standings right now, I believe they are third last in points percentage.
Okay.
They are.
Well, they were
third last.
They were the first team to get knocked out of the playoffs, right?
Yeah, this team, I mean, I can do a 3-hour podcast literally solo, just ripping into the Montreal Canadiens and how they went from going to the Stanley Cup final to being terrible.
Only 3 hours, Bruno.
I will refrain from doing that. But this team, Lepore, under Martin St. Louis, has been pretty solid.
Yep.
I'll just go over the numbers real quick. In 20 games under St. Louis, the Habs are 10-7-3 with a +2 goal differential. And the biggest thing that has happened for this team has been the resurrection of Cole Caulfield.
Definitely.
In 20 games under Marty St. Louis, Caulfield has 13 goals, 11 assists, and 24 points. He has looked great. So, I mean, what are we thinking about this team right now? Because they're still obviously bad. Only Arizona and Seattle have a worse points percentage right now than the Habs. But pretty positive, honestly, to see how this team has responded under St. Louis and to see how good Cole Caulfield has been playing, who was one of the favorites to win the Rookie of the Year heading into the season.
Yeah. It's nice to see for Canadiens fans because, I mean, let's face it, it wasn't very long ago that there was nothing good happening in the land of the Montreal Canadiens. In comes St. Louis, a guy everybody likes. I love Marty St. Louis. I absolutely loved him as a player. I love his personality. I loved him in interviews. Hockey player's hockey player, as they used to say in the old days. So there's that thing. You're kind of rooting for St. Louis to look good in Montreal and do well with the team. He's definitely excited them. And what these things point to when there's this kind of turnaround, and you often see the turnaround with the new coach, because it's just a breath of fresh air, it's a different voice or whatever cliche you want to use. How bad must Dom Ducharme have been for this team to be where they were at earlier in the season? And I think it's even safe to say, like, I don't think this is a hot take when I say Ducharme cost Caulfield the Calder. Like, and I know the pace he's at right now makes no sense, and he wouldn't have done that all season. But you look around the league, and I think you mentioned before he was the favorite going in. I mean, Caulfield, I would bet, would have won the Calder had Ducharme not started the season and St. Louis started the season. But it's positive stuff for Montreal. They look happy. We say on this show all the time, when you're going to the rink unhappy, you're gonna lose. And that was Montreal. You look on their faces, their body language before the game started under Ducharme, bet against the other team. Now, here's this team playing for nothing, and you can say that's benefiting them because there's no pressure. But you look at the enthusiasm on their bench with their coaches, them celebrating goals. I mean, it's fun. They're having a good time, and they're playing well. So St. Louis, I mean, he's still interim, right? And the job's going to be his if he wants it, or that's what everyone's assuming. So at this point, I can't really see him not becoming the head coach, or that would suck for Montreal and Montreal Canadiens fans if he didn't become the head coach, because what he's done is impressive. And it gives optimism going into next season, because again, let's face it, a short time ago, we even looking into next year wouldn't have been thinking very much of Montreal. The way St. Louis has turned this around, and if Montreal's aggressive and the way they've cleaned up things quite considerably, if someone said, okay, Montreal's fighting for a playoff spot next year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that's fair. I still think this team is, I don't want to say far away, but I still think they have a lot of work to do to actually returning to relevance and a team that can consistently compete for a playoff spot. But It's been all positives under Martin St. Louis. I just don't like how this team has handled the Cole Caulfield situation. You go back to last year's playoffs, he was a healthy scratch to begin the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, they're just, again, Montreal got to the Stanley Cup final. So you could say all the moves they made worked out, but I believe there was a couple of occasions where he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs until they finally came to their senses and realized, oh my God, he's our most dangerous offensive player.
Yeah.
And who cares that he's only 20 years old? We need this guy in the lineup. And then it goes into this season. Obviously, the team was terrible the first 4 months of the season. And Cole Caulfield was struggling big time. It seemed like the team had totally checked out. Dominic Ducharme just wasn't getting the job done. Caulfield gets sent down to the Laval Rocket. I believe he only had like 2 goals in his first 39 games.
Oh, people were giving up on the kid. It was bad.
It was terrible. Just the way that they've had, like, let this guy play. He's clearly good enough to be an NHL regular. For them to be screwing around with him and sending him down and not instilling this kid with confidence, not putting him in the right situation to succeed, I just thought was completely bizarre. And now it seems like he's in the perfect situation where St. Louis has a ton of confidence in him. They're playing him with the players he should be playing with. He's playing on the first power play unit. Look, the guy's got 13 goals in 20 games under Marty St. Louis. The confidence is back. There's a reason he came into the season as one of the top 2 favorites to win the Calder Trophy. So that's the biggest thing to me. It seems like St. Louis has put this team in a great spot moving forward, just even with their mentality heading into every game, because it's easy for a team that's this shitty to just be checked out and to mail it in for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. And they've rallied around him. And again, the biggest thing is the play of Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. Hockey's weird, man. How like mental it is, and how I don't want to say a small change, like a coaching change, but it's essentially the same lineup. Like, what happened? And I'm not saying they've done a full 180, but again, there can be optimism now for Montreal Canadiens fans, and maybe they end up with a first overall pick, or even if it's 2, 3, 4, whatever it ends up being, and they get another great player, so it can benefit them. But yeah, why not? I mean, the division's a juggernaut. So here we are thinking that like the Sens are shit, the Sabres are shit, the Habs are shit. At least we have that. No, it seems like Buffalo's kind of turning it around. I mean, Detroit's on the up. The Sens have potential. Now we don't know what Montreal is. So, how about the best 8 teams in the division? Like, or in the conference, I should say, all come from this division next year. We'll see.
Yeah, going into next season, it's going to be very interesting to see if Detroit takes another leap, to see what happens with the Sabres, if the Habs can continue their momentum.
Ottawa has to. Like,
Ottawa has to be better.
There's jobs on the line if Ottawa doesn't. Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of those teams are probably not going to make the playoffs next season, because it's very difficult to see the Leafs, Bruins, Lightning, or Panthers all becoming that much worse in the span of one off season.
Like that much of a point swing in one
exactly.
season.
I mean, maybe one of those teams drops down, and it allows either Detroit, Ottawa, or Montreal, or one of these teams to compete for a wild card spot. But it's still going to be difficult considering how good the top of the Atlantic Division is. And Lepore, we have to move on now to this Sunday night game.
Yeah,
Leafs, Panthers, Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, coming off the loss to the Habs the previous night, where they outshoot them 51-18, and Mrazek's in net, and Leaf fans are going into the game a little bit worried, facing the number 1 offense in the league in the Florida Panthers. Peter Mrazek's in net, someone who's been wildly inconsistent. You didn't know what team was going to show up. It was a back-to-back situation. Now, it was also a back-to-back situation for the Florida Panthers.
True.
So it was even in that respect. But man, oh man, Lepore, I was super impressed with how the Leafs played. I thought they were really good defensively. I didn't think they gave the Panthers much of anything. And again, obviously Florida had that spurt at the end of the game where they're 2 goals down and the extra attackers on the ice, and they're peppering the Leafs
for like 5 minutes. It was like 4 or 5 minutes left when they pulled the goal.
And they got a ton of shots and chances out of that. But I thought the game was pretty comfortably in hand at that point, even though it is the Florida Panthers and they scored a ton of goals. But the way I looked at it, I didn't think Barkov was much of a factor. Claude Giroux, I would even go as far as saying he was a ghost in this game. Yeah. I didn't think he did much of anything. Jonathan Huberdeau wasn't really a factor in this game. All of their top players didn't really do much. And again, you could say the Leafs' top players, like, for example, I thought Marner played well. I mean, the dude had 3 assists and had some unreal setups. Tavares obviously scored a couple of goals. Matthews was a little quieter in this game, but overall, Lepore, I thought the Leafs played well. What was your take on this game against the Panthers?
Yeah, I think it was a good overall performance. You mentioned kind of the big names for Florida not showing up. That kid Lundberg, I believe, was from Richmond Hill, playing his first game against the Leafs. He scored because, again, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bet your house that was going to happen. But the second period to me really grabbed my attention when the play was going back and forth, and you were like, "Wow, these are two really good teams." But it was a weird game too, in the way that there was some sloppiness. Like I thought on both ends. Like I found sometimes Florida had a hard time getting the puck out of their end. And the go-ahead goal that made it 2-1 for Florida, like what was Matthews doing? Like the puck came out kind of in the corner and he behind the back did to Willie, and Willie was the one who lost it, but it happened in a split second. I don't know if I really blame him for that. There wasn't much he could do there. Marner, A+. Like that may have been the best game of his career. I thought he was that good. It was great to see Mikheyev score again, similar to the goal he scored against Jersey. He deked to the back end. Did you see that stat on Mikheyev that shorthanded, his expected goals percentage is like 45% or like 48%?
That's insane.
When he's like the lead shorthanded, when Mikheyev's on the ice, the attempts on net are pretty well even. Like think how crazy that is. And he's a regular penalty killer. So one, like story of the game. So like you mentioned how you were watching the game with your girlfriend and flipped to the Oscars. My wife was upstairs and here I am on the main level watching my beloved Leafs. And my wife, God bless her, has done an excellent job dealing with a husband who is a hardcore Toronto Maple Leafs fan. It's difficult. It's stressful. There's mood swings. There's super ups. There's super lows. And during games, there are loud screams. There are bangs, occasional smashed television set. No, I'm just kidding. I've never smashed a TV. But in the second period, Leafs down by 1. Austin Matthews, the number 1 goal scorer in the league, on a breakaway. You jump out of your chair. You could feel the excitement, and Bruno's already got his hand on his head. You could feel the excitement getting ready to celebrate a goal, and he dropped it. I don't know. I'm being serious here. In that moment, here you are, stressful. They just lost to Montreal. They're down by 1 at home to Florida. I'm not sure if in that moment, like the moment for myself, I don't know if I've ever screamed fuck louder during a Leafs game than when I did on that play. I think the exact quote was, "What the fuck was that?" And I said, my wife's used to it. She's seen screams. She's heard bangs. She's seen tears of joy and sadness. She came running down the stairs. She was like, "What happened?" And I explained to her and she's like, "Oh my God." Like, Matthews missed a breakaway. If almost like our neighbor's going to call the police on us, but bonkers to me, bonkers. I have no idea what he was thinking in a position like that. And even then, yeah, I know the guy's a superstar and he's occasionally going to try some cool things, but you don't do it when you're down by 1 in a game, when you're playing one of the best teams in the league, man. And again, again, how I said before, how things can be confusing sometimes because they boggle your mind so much. When Marner did it on that bunting goal a few weeks ago, Marner's a passer and does those occasional cute things. So
Marner's allowed to do that.
Yeah. Like Matthews, I was like, what? Like, it just didn't make sense. Like, why would he do that? Like, and even his personality, like Matthews wants the goal, even beyond like his ego and his personality. You're in a race for the Maurice Rocket-Richard trophy. Unless he thought Marner was going to give it back to him. Maybe something they've tried in practice. I don't know. But again, shoot the puck. Anyway, just like another moment in torment or of torment in the history of my life as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Just like hilarious.
Lepore, in all your rage, you may have forgot that you texted me as soon as that happened. And I'm literally looking at the text right now. Lepore texted me in all caps saying, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah.
And I responded saying, "I cannot believe what we just saw." Yeah. And we both knew exactly what we were talking about, even though we didn't bring up Austin Matthews. But for the best goal scorer in the world, who's going to go down as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, to be on a clear-cut breakaway in the middle of a Rocket-Richard trophy race, a Hart Trophy season, to drop a puck back on a clear-cut breakaway is one of the most bizarre things I have ever seen with this hockey team. Just when you thought you had seen it all with the Leafs, Austin Matthews, the best goal scorer on planet Earth, drops the puck on a clear-cut breakaway. And I get it. He was trying to pull the Mitch Marner, He's trying to be fancy. But Austin, please, you're Austin Matthews, for the love of God. Shoot the damn puck. Score the goal. Don't try that shit ever again.
I was saying to my buddy earlier this morning, I was like, 'cause we were laughing about it. I said, and we can laugh about it because the Leafs won, thank God. But I said, imagine we were watching a footy match and it was either Portugal or Man United and Ronaldo was on a breakaway and he just like stopped and dished it off. It'd be like, what? Like, no, Ronaldo's going for the glory. And Austin, we expect you to do the same thing. But I have a question for you, Bruno. I have a question for you. And comment down below, everyone, what you think about this one. And actually, I'm shocked. This topic of discussion didn't get any momentum. So here's Matthews. Like I said, down by 1, gets a breakaway. He pulls that shit and it fails miserably. Okay. The night before, a few nights before when they're playing Montreal, the night before when they're playing Montreal, Nylander had that missed assignment, okay, that led to a Montreal goal. And he was benched. He was taken off his normal line. And we've seen it throughout the season when Willie's not playing well and Keefe will bump him down or take away minutes. The Leafs went on a power play right after that, and Matthews was out there. No, I'm just going to ask the question. And because I think it's a discussion. We all know why Keefe didn't do it, but was that play deserve it of a benching on the part of Austin Matthews, or at least like you miss a shift or a power play or something?
You can't.
Not even one shift.
I'm with Sheldon Keefe on this one. As bizarre as it was, as crazy as it was, I think it's because it's Austin Matthews. You give him a pass. Like, for example, Lepore, if that was Andre Kasha,
yeah,
if that was Alex Kerfoot who tried something like that, those guys aren't allowed to do that. And I said that Mitch Marner is really the only guy who's allowed to do that because he's one of the best playmakers in the world and he has eyes on the back of his head. You give the pass to Austin Matthews. You get why he was trying that. Sometimes these guys are so talented and so skilled and thinking the game at such a high level, faster than everybody else, that they're going to do things that just seem absolutely insane. And this was one of these moments. And again, I think Austin Matthews was a complete donkey for doing that. But I don't think you can get to the point where you're benching him or taking him off the power play, especially in a game like that against one of the best teams in the league.
But like you mentioned, guys like Kasha. So, like I said, it was Willie Nylander who got benched. So even then, and I'm asking, the gap is that big in terms of authority when it comes to Matthews and say a Nylander.
The thing with Nylander, and I've heard Sheldon Keefe talk about this, in public during his press conferences, it seems like he knows how to push Nylander's buttons. And I think Nylander actually, I don't want to say he enjoys getting called out, but he responds
to it. Yeah.
Because he calls out Nylander a lot. Yes. And no one really talks about it too much, but he calls out Nylander, honestly, almost more than any other player. But I think it's honestly by design, because I think he knows what buttons to press with William Nylander and the motivation that guy needs. If he's not playing well defensively, if he's not being strong on pucks and hard in the corners and things like that, and those one-on-one battles, I think he knows how to kind of poke the bear with William Nylander. So I think that's why he's a little bit harder on him than some of the other guys, because maybe some of the other guys don't have the same mental strength or they don't have that same thick skin that Nylander does. That's my view on the situation. But I don't think Nylander's that far down, or it's not like Matthews he's that much worse than Austin Matthews. Like he's a very good player in his own right.
Yeah, it was, to me, I thought I would throw it out there because Keefe's done it. Keefe's done it to Willie, and as you said, he's done it on a regular basis. And it was just, to me, it just popped into my head. And I'm not sitting here saying Matthews should have been benched for the rest of the period or taken off. I'm just saying it wouldn't have shocked me after, I'm sure he at least got a talking to, whether it was on the bench or in between periods. But thank God, like I said, the Leafs go on to win this game. What I will say about this game, Bruno, I'd like to get your take on this one. So, we watch every Leafs game, but there are certain games you pay more attention to than others. So when I was watching this game against Florida, because they are the Florida Panthers and such a good team, I was trying my best to really and truly pay attention to their style and how they match up and how they approach certain situations. Something that jumped out to me very quickly as far as the Leafs are concerned anyway, and again, comment down below what you think about this, is that Florida's going to punish you. So it's not even about they're going to punish you when you make mistakes, but they're going to punish you when your weaker players are out there. And what jumped out to me in this game is Wayne Simmonds cannot be in the lineup against the Florida Panthers. He just can't. And I hate to say it, even Spezza, maybe he'd have to like move to the wing on the fourth line because he can't center the fourth line against a team like Florida because he's going to be punished. And people will be quick to say, oh, the fourth line only plays, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. That could be a goal. Like we saw Simmonds on the ice when the Leafs got scored on last night. The other one to me was Justin Hall. I mean, Hall takes a lot of shit, as a lot of defensemen in Canadian media do, and among Canadian fans with these markets. But he's just not capable playing against a team like that. So what jumped out to me is that, oh my God, like we really need Sandin and Muzzin in this lineup to push down the responsibility of Justin Hall to the point where like he's barely on the ice, because against teams like Florida, you will be exposed. They will punish you. And I've said many times throughout this season, I really do think this is the best Leafs team of the Matthews era. And the reason for that is because I look at the lineup, and even when you go down the lineup, the way I always put it is that each player on the team has an identity and a purpose. Like we all know what Ilya Mikheyev brings. We all know what Kasha brings, Kerfoot, Kampf, even like Blackwell now, like we can see, yeah, like that's what he brings. He can do this. He can provide this. He can add this to a line. Those guys, I mean, specifically say like Hall and Simmonds at this point, what is their identity and what do they provide? And like I said, I hate to say it, but to the point with Spezza now where he has lost that one step, where I still want him in the lineup and I still think he can handle it on the wing, but I don't know if he can do it at center, even on a fourth line against a team as loaded as that, who will kill you. They'll beat you if you have those guys on the ice for an extended period of time.
I completely agree with you about the fourth line. I think it's a big issue right now, and it sticks out a lot more when you play a team like Florida that's just as deep as the Leafs. You could argue Florida is the deepest forward group in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
And just going over some of the numbers on Natural Stat Trick, at 5-on-5, Colin Blackwell, Wayne Simmonds, and Jason Spezza did not register a single shot attempt.
Yeah.
A shot attempt, not a shot on goal, a shot attempt. While they were on the ice at 5-on-5, Colin Blackwell, Leafs with him on the ice at 5-on-5, out attempted 10-0.
Yeah.
Spezza 8-0. Wayne Simmonds 9-0. So those guys got completely bludgeoned at 5-on-5. And it's like you said, in a playoff game, even if they're only playing 5 or 6 minutes, that could be the difference in a game. Yeah. When they're on the ice, and especially if you're on the road and you can get out, let's say they ice the puck and all of a sudden Florida's putting out Barkov and Huberdeau and Giroux and all these guys in the offensive zone, that could result in a goal, and that could be the difference in winning or losing a game and winning or losing a series. Yeah. And I think it's a huge issue right now. That fourth line needs a shake up, and whether these guys from college are going to come in like Matthew Nyes to shake things up, or Abruzzese, like I don't know if these guys are going to be ready to play and be thrust into a position like that, because that's kind of unfair to those guys as well. And then you said it even with Justin Hall. I'm looking at the numbers at Hall. With him on the ice at 5-on-5, Lepore, the Leafs were out attempted 15-8.
Yeah, 2-1.
It's like you said, what is he providing? He's not playing on the power play. He's just not very good. And I get it. Muzzin and Sandin are out right now, but it's going to be very interesting to see who Sheldon Keefe decides to scratch in that first game. Whether, I don't know if Muzzin and Sandin are going to come back at the same time, but as soon as one of them comes back, we will see exactly where Sheldon Keefe stands on this and who he scratches on that decor. I actually can't wait to see. And I think that's a storyline that might not be getting as much airtime right now with the Leafs, but I really want to see how this decor shakes out come playoff time.
Yeah, I noticed those stats last night, like on Twitter. Jay Fresh. It's funny because he actually posted that our favorite defenseman, Ben Sherrod, his expected goals percentage was like 2%. Like he was just getting killed by the Leafs every time. I mean, you have natural stat check in front of you. Maybe you can look up the exact number. But yeah, and he said that the Leafs' fourth line, their expected goals percentage was 0. They didn't have an attempt on that. Like I've never even seen that before for the guys who played like decent minutes, but it's concerning. I mean, it's one of those things. Is it concerning? Because if you have Muzzin, a healthy Muzzin, and Sandy in the lineup and Hall's responsibilities get pushed down, it might not be that big of a deal. And as far as the forward group goes, all it takes is one guy to step into a role and someone gets pushed down. Like a lot of people have been screaming for Kerfoot to center the fourth line because at least that'll provide some stability down there. So we'll see what happens. If you had to bank on it right now, Nyes, Abruzzese, and I'll even throw another name out there that hasn't really been talked about lately, Hosang. Do you think we'll see them in the lineup and like be given a proper shot and maybe in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a shakeup for sure because there's no way that the Leafs can keep rolling out this fourth line. I thought the Leafs' first 3 lines, I was pretty confident. No matter who was on the ice, I felt like they played well on both sides of the puck. But that fourth line came on the ice and it wasn't pretty. And again, it hasn't just been this game against Florida. This has been a trend now where this fourth line is consistently getting outplayed. So I think we are going to see a shakeup at some point. I don't think it's going to be like a massive shakeup where all of them gets like Spezza and Simmons are getting scratched game 1 of the playoffs. I mean, it's possible, but again, I don't think they're just going to thrust these NCAA guys into the lineup. Okay, you just got here. Congratulations. You're playing game 1 of the playoffs. We're scratching Spezza and Simmons. I don't think it's going to be that drastic, but yeah, maybe Hosang plays a role in this as well. I think we're going to see a shakeup, but I don't think it's going to be as big as of a shakeup as people think.
Okay. I mean, we're hoping just one of these kids comes in and they're Wayne Gretzky, and that's the story of the Leafs road to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Unlikely.
That shot in the arm that they need. Final 10 to 20 games of the season. Matthew Nyes comes in and scores 10 goals.
Just
to
rips
close
it
out
up
the season.
To prove a point that he wouldn't have been a good trade for Marc-Andre Fleury.
Exactly. Unloading multiple first round picks. The Leafs' number 1 prospect for a goalie who has a worse save percentage than Jack Campbell.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, Lepore, before we close this out, there's one thing I do want to mention about Mark Giordano.
Okay.
I've loved the way that he's played, but Sheldon Keefe, after the game against Florida, said, it's no coincidence that in the 3 games he's been here, those are the fewest chances given up. He also said he loves the way that everything is slotted now defensively. Shift after shift, the team is killing plays before they develop.
Okay.
So that's what he said about Giordano. And again, we're right towards the end of the podcast here. We're not going to get into it too much, but we just shat on the fourth line, but with Mark Giordano in the lineup defensively, and like we said, when Muzzin comes back and Sandin, and now that you add Giordano into the mix, it's a real difference maker for this team. And I tend to agree with everything that Sheldon Keefe said in that post-game press conference about Mark Giordano. And I'm very excited to see how this decor is going to look when it's fully healthy.
Yeah. I mean, as Leafs fans, it's kind of, I'm going to laugh while I say it. It's hard to be like glass half full guy sometimes, but if you do try to take positives from every game, that Montreal game had a lot of bad, but if you step back for a second, we let up less than 20 shots on goal. So I think Keefe kind of got shot on for it, but after the game, he had some sort of quote saying, I wish we played that way every day or every game or something. And people flipped out. Well, then you'd go 0-82 and then the Leafs would be shit. You should be disappointed. And no, you know what he's saying. Like if the Leafs are creating that many chances every night and defending that well and giving up less than 20, they're going to do very well. And yeah, like I said, just trying to find something positive out of it. And again, if you think about it, those 3 games with Giordano, the win against New Jersey, holding Montreal under 20 shots, and then the win against one of the better teams in the league. And like we said, their shots were in the mid to low 20s before pulling the goalie with 5 minutes left. So good sign so far anyway.
Yeah, I thought the Leafs played pretty darn well against Florida when you consider all the factors and everything we just talked about with the fourth line and Justin Hall and things like that. I thought it was a great game. I thought their top players didn't do much of all on the Panthers. And again, we can talk about this on the next podcast leading into the playoffs. We've already talked about this. The Florida Panthers, you get them into a 7-game series against a team that knows how to defend and a team that can score timely goals and has good offensive players like the Leafs. I think it's a really nice matchup, Lepore. But before we end this thing, is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
Just looking forward to another crazy week. What do they have? They got what? Boston on Tuesday.
Tuesday. The Winnipeg Jets at home on Thursday, and then on the road against the Flyers on Saturday night.
Okay. Yeah. Like we still got Florida 2 more times. We have Boston. You look at the calendar, we played Boston the last game of the season. So like that might be for a spot. And I think we play Florida like just a few games before that. So
yeah, there's 2. I think the's 2 more games against Tampa as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's a boxing match, man, for those spots. And like you mentioned how like Keefe approached that game there with that Carolina game, letting them come at them. I wonder how much of that is going on, not only with the Leafs, but like other teams in the East. I don't want to say like they don't care if they lose, but they're just trying new things, seeing what works. They're taking, because the 8 teams are so locked up. Maybe they're just taking it as an opportunity to dabble into things and see what works. Because like I keep saying to people, and I'm not lying here, like you do look at how this breaks down. Take your pick with who you want to play, whether it's Carolina, Florida, Boston, Tampa. What difference does it make? I mean, there's pros and cons to every situation. I mean, you'd love to have home ice, but even for the Leafs, I might argue that the Leafs don't want home ice. They don't want that pressure starting at home. But so yeah, I mean, maybe they are approaching it like that. I guess maybe we'll see how the lineup shake up, especially the Leafs lineup as the season comes to a close.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of tinkering from now until the end of the season with the Leafs. Because like you said, Lepore, playoff spot is locked up. It almost doesn't matter who they play at this point. I'm still on the record as saying I want to completely avoid the Tampa Bay Lightning at all costs in the first round. But if it happens, it happens. But you're going to see Sheldon Keefe playing around with this lineup, testing things, especially in the bottom 6 with the D-core. Because once the entire D-core is healthy, we don't know if Mark Giordano is going to continue playing with Timothy Liljegren, right? We maybe he's going to be playing with Brody, or maybe he's even going to be playing with Morgan Riley, right? Like we really don't know yet. Yeah. So that's what I would keep my eye on, is how Keefe sort of plays around with this lineup leading into the playoffs. But I can't wait to see how this all shakes out. Some big games coming up against Florida, Tampa, and Boston, and we will be right here to break everything down. But that is going to do it for episode 57 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed the content, please give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. We would love you for that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.